Chaim Simon from the Transportation Council, Alex Carver from City of Schenectady, Bob Rice from Creighton Manning, Chris Bauer from the Transportation Council, Jamie O'Neill from Malta, Joanne, if you could just type your affiliation and full name in the chat, that would be great. Joe Semino from CHA, Kristen Morris from State DOT, Laura Robertson from Messina, Laura Sanda from McFarland Johnson, Peter Comenzo from Town of Rotterdam, Ryan Riper from Town of Wilton, and Teresa LaSalle from the Transportation Council.
Thank you, Sandy. Visitors issues, anybody registered?
No one registered to speak today.
Okay, to administration, previous meeting minutes. We had a chance to review October 2nd minutes. Any questions, comments? For motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mark. Yes.
I'll second, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye? Anyone opposed, abstained, motion carries. Draft performance and expenditure report.
That is me.
You.
So we're having an unusually short meeting today for a lot of reasons. But I did want to go through with you. Chaim, can you return hosting duties to me? Because I can't share. I wanted to go through the presentation on the performance report. Once I have the ability to share a screen. There it is. Okay, perfect. Right, so just to walk through this quickly, I'm gonna have some of my staff kind of touch upon a couple of highlights. First of all, we do this report every 6 months, goes to Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration, describes all the work we've done in the last 6 months. This is due in early December. Just some highlights of the planning work we accomplished. We've updated our limited English proficiency translation and interpretation procedures. We relaunched the Equity Advisory Committee. We launched a new website. We initiated 4 technical assistance projects, 3 through our technical assistance program, and then 1 with Albany County through a direct relationship with the county. We also completed the regional signal timing program. Since we didn't have a formal presentation today, I thought we would kind of expand a little bit on a couple of these topics. So I'll turn the section over to Andrew Tracy.
Sure. Yeah, I wanted to provide a brief update. The program actually completed earlier this year, back in April, but we hadn't had a chance to tell the planning committee about it. So this study used $100,000 in planning funds to hire a consultant. In this case, we hired GPI, Mike Wachowski from GPI was the project manager. And we developed and implemented optimized signal timings on 3 corridors around the region: New Scotland Ave, State and Erie in Schenectady, and West Ave in Saratoga Springs. So for each of these corridors, we collected turning movement counts. The consultant built a synchro simulation model of the corridor, brought in the existing signal timings, optimized them, went out to the field, and field implemented the revised timings. So we have a slide for each of these 3 corridors. GPI prepared just a brief before and after. The before and after stats that we see here, these are modeled. We haven't had a chance to do a before and after study with field data collection yet. But in New Scotland Avenue, that was 18 intersections on New Scotland Ave. Albany also used this as an opportunity to implement leading pedestrian intervals on the corridor due to it being such a ped-heavy corridor. The model results suggest that due to the strong potential for improvement here with a signal coordination, that the delay can be reduced by about 39% in the morning and about 23% in the afternoon peak, just through signal retiming. And that's even when you include the small amount of additional delay that's introduced by the leading pedestrian intervals, you still get a big travel time savings on the corridor. The next one was State and Erie. So we retimed 12 signals in total, some on State, some on Erie, including the intersection of the 2. This corridor also saw some improvement, a little less than New Scotland Ave. delay reduced by about 13% in the morning and about 15% in the afternoon. And then the third and final corridor was a short one, West Ave in Saratoga Springs near the high school. 4 signals, but with just a little retiming, delay can be reduced by about 20% in the morning and 11% in the afternoon. In the table on the right, this table I included, it shows a few more statistics. We are saving not just travel time, but we're saving fuel, we're saving emissions as well. So there's a number of benefits from signal timing. On the last slide, a couple of lessons learned. So we know that Federal Highway recommends signal retiming pretty frequently, every 5 to 10 years, or whenever something occurs that would change traffic patterns in the area. If a new development is built, then they recommend signals be retimed. If there's new roads, new infrastructures, if anything's reconfigured, they recommend retiming as well. Some corridors in our region we know have a very high potential for travel time savings, fuel savings, emission savings, just from signal retiming. We know that a lot of these signals haven't received a lot of attention since they were installed, in some cases, decades ago. So just a little bit of attention could lead to a huge benefit for the traveling public. And also, as we saw in New Scotland Ave, it's a great opportunity to check to make sure that all of the signals have the recommended head crossing intervals for safe pedestrian crossings. And if you want to implement something like a leading pedestrian interval, this is a great opportunity to do so as well. So that's a very quick wrap up on the signal timing program. I think it was pretty successful, and if anybody has any questions about it, be happy to answer them.
Was it just modeled, Andrew? I don't understand.
They-
Did you actually
Yes,
implement
they were
it,
all implemented in the field.
but you did,
We haven't done the after studies.
so you
yet.
just modeled results, you're not sure exactly what the results. will
Right.
be.
And to do that, we would have to go out and collect new field data. I would like to do some before and after studies to capture what the true benefits
So I
were.
assume that's the plan, in fact, we go out and measure the true benefit.
Yeah, we're gonna do that probably sometime in 2025, just because of our workload here.
Was there any age with the signals that they were dealing with?
There were a few issues they ran into in a couple of the areas. I think they were all resolved. I think New Scotland Ave, they ran into a couple of small issues that they were able to resolve. I don't think any of these signals were very old. None of them were the electromechanical signals.
So that's,
The ones on New Scotland Ave had the new McCain Transparity software, so they were relatively modern, and I think a lot of them were actually replaced right as the study was beginning, so they had new equipment out there. But we do know that if we tried other corridors and they did have electromechanical controllers, I think a lot of contractors might suggest that they can't
Right.
implement the timing. If they're too old.
Can the NPR, I forget the whole acronym, NPR.
NPM RDS.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one. Can that
So
be
that's-
used?
That's our travel time data set, and that's one of the data sources I'd like to use to do a before and after study. Look at the free flow speed, or the AM, PM, peak speeds before and after. The NPM RDS is a little less reliable on signalized roads than it is on freeways. Just because of the nature of the stop and go traffic with the signals. So I would also like to go out there and just count queues, queue lengths, and see if there's unclear queues and things of that nature.
Does the city upgraded 2 signals recently during to the BioVision software? Does
Okay.
that give you any of the data?
So it can, and so can the McCain system. So maybe I'll reach out to the city and try to get some modern data from
Yeah,
the BioVision sensors.
yeah, we're just trying right now, I'm talking to the signal superintendent, we seem to be at a tipping point of if we want to continue with the loops or move forward with the MyoVision. MyoVision has a one-time subscription fee that we've seen. We're just trying to find what we want to go to. With Erie Boulevard, we thought that the data collection there would be useful, but we have a lot of secondary roads that really you want to make that, get that, but the loops in the ground, they're in the ground, it's the northeast, it's kind of a pain.
I believe CDTA, you guys have a lot of the MyoVision the signal that.
We're using for a signal for.
Yeah, so I think you have 60 to 80 of them.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, there's a lot of-
And
They're big
then,
mile vision.
yeah, when they go to the action items, I mean, that's something that they're looking to upgrade on the corridor. They,
Yeah.
and then the only other thing I see is that every 5 to 10 years recommending retiming and all that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, because I just had a meeting with Carrie about one of our projects that we're working on with you, Sandy. And it's on Eastern Avenue, and we're looking at it, and, there's 2 signals on that corridor. And they've been there for my entire life, but they were there when there was a major elementary school and a church with a school, and the church was active. So, you know, we put these 2 signals there. And in the last probably 10 years, really, that corridor has changed, but we left the infrastructure in place.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, does that infrastructure really need to be there, because the corridor is upgraded? So I'm interested to see what the study comes back with, because I feel like sometimes we aren't moving as fast as the development to make adjustments and things like that.
Right.
I will note that we piloted this in our last UPWP, we just wrapped it up in this UPWP. We may bring this program back in the new UPWP unless we consider the option that Greg will be presenting as part of the tip update, which is another avenue to accomplish the same goal, because these are very cost-effective things we can do. And we really haven't done a great job regionally on our maintaining our signals, and particularly updating this timing plan, so it might be a low-hanging fruit that we can easily accomplish, so. So thank you for the update on that
Well,
one.
as a daily New Scotland Avenue commuter, I anecdotally have noticed, and
You've noticed this for a minute already.
I'm less angry when I get into the office.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
Interview you for the before and after.
That's right. We are, case study.
Yeah,
So a few other planning work highlights quickly. We still are running our on-demand traffic count program. You know, I'll put that offer out there again to communities. If you have a need for any counts, I know we're getting into the winter season, but if you do need any local traffic counts, bicycle pedestrian counts, we have the eco counters for trail counts. That program is still live and open to anyone, so just keep that in mind. Many of you know we've made a lot of progress on our in-motion regional transportation plan and development. We have a lot of activity coming very soon on that. We're developing and continue to develop a complete street story map, which Carrie thinks will be probably completed by the end of the calendar year. So hopefully sometime in January, we'll be able to share that product with you folks for information. We've completed a couple of ADA transition plans in Troy and Wilson Spa, and we're pretty close to completing the one in Guilderland. Many of you know we obviously updated the tip guidance and a lot of things related to the upcoming tip. And we're still developing our Vision Zero Safety Action Plan, which is the next one that I will ask Carrie to present a little bit about as she's typing her notes.
Oh, I was just gonna type whatever you were gonna say.
Yeah.
So we are at a point where we're sending in, for as part of that count contract that we have, some speed limit location data collection requests to help the consultant team put together the recommendations for speed limit reductions. Are you showing my slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the 3 documents at the top are posted to the website now. The data and equity analysis approach has been there for a while, but the other 2 are relatively newly posted. The demonstration projects are not happening anymore. We ran into a snafu with those, so we aren't going to be doing actual on the ground things that you could walk out and see, but we are still going to be developing concepts for the location. So we're still kind of doing the same work, just not putting anything out on the ground. We will be doing 40 highway safety investigations at locations informed by the crash analysis as well. So the next 2 slides are the locations for the concept development that we're going to do. So in Albany, it's basically a block plus 1 additional block to the east around Albany High School. In Green Island, the George Street and Lower Hudson Ave, from Hudson Ave, so that's basically like we're up where the Green Island Bridge is, to that down to the I-77 northbound ramp in Schenectady. So this is what Chris was just talking about on Eastern Avenue from Knott Terrace to Elmer Place. In Troy, we want to look at Fourth Street from Federal to Broadway. Yes. And then in Saratoga Springs, a block two-ish of the area near Caroline Street downtown, so from Broadway out to Hodgman Street and then also along Lake Avenue. And then in Waterfleet, the block that surrounds, with the roadways that surround where the pool is and the senior center and the library here. So just north of where City Hall is. I think that's all I've got.
Yes. Thank you for that update, Carrie. And then just to kind of wrap up, our staff has provided a lot of technical assistance and modeling support to DOT and Schenectady County for their planning and environmental linkage studies. We actually, Carrie, led Tools of the Trade workshop for the human service transportation providers in partnership with the Saratoga County transportation group. I'm probably using the wrong words for that, but their own transportation group up there. We launched a driver mode shift survey. We actually just this last week or two got the initial results. So I think I'll be able to share with you what we learned from the driver survey, which was interesting because they sampled 800 folks in the capital region for this survey, which is almost a statistically significant sample, to get a sense of how folks view driving and just get a little insight into their driving behavior, as well as their use of services like Uber Eats, these kinds of things. So it should provide a little insight there to support some of our planning work. And then we've got 9 linkage studies at various points of completion or underway or just getting underway. And we did complete the Albany Crane Street study in Schenectady. So that's sort of the highlight reel of the work that we've done to date. But that report shows all the balances of funding. And if you have any questions about that, you can let me know. That's it on that. We don't need an action on that.
All right, thanks, Sandy. 2025 planning committee policy board meetings, yeah, what was that?
Policy board and planning committee. So it was in your packet. I just want to remind everybody that we are altering the schedule for off the first Monday of the month for both January and February's meetings. So please mark your calendars with January 8th, January 29th, and save the date for the 12th in case we need it. I'm hoping we won't, but in case we do need it, largely those meetings will be used to build the new tip. Make decisions on funding for new projects, verify the roll-in of the existing program, address set-aside requests. So those meetings will largely be for that, with the goal of having a draft for our policy board to release for public review at their March meetings. So the rest of the meeting schedule should go back to normal, but I just wanted to make sure you were all aware of those dates.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Action items, we have a tip amendments on CDTA bus plus red line upgrades.
And I will let Melissa present that.
So for this, we're just looking to draw down the remaining funds in year 3 of the BRT set aside to program into the red line upgrades project. We've had ongoing upgrades in Schenectady, and we'll be moving into Albany as well. But this is just to continue work on that project. There's also some additional, because we also received the Safe Streets funding that was added, so that kind of adjusted the schedule a little bit. So some of the funding with the execution of the grants this year just adjusted some of the phases of the schedule. So this was just kind of updating that. So the funds that were shifted forward that had already been programmed will be included with the grants in the same grant with the funds that we're adding with those set aside funds currently. Any questions?
So, all right, no,
So I'll frame it as it's a balancing of the book. And a drawdown on the set aside RG 131 for the 3rd year of the funding that was set aside for bus rapid transit work.
any questions? So we're looking for a motion to approve the cost increase, is that what you're looking at, 2.5?
The cost increase and schedule changes.
Schedule change. Can I have a motion? That was Chris, do I have a second?
We'll go with Howard. I saw his hand first.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, any abstain, motion carries, thank you. On to discussion items, 2025, 2030 tip discussion, that would be. Friends of DOT.
Yeah, well, if you don't mind, I'll just introduce it. So, obviously, we've been waiting for the guidance to come from the state DOT on how the, with our funding allocation and with sort of the rules, if you will, guidance, for how to build a new tip. So Greg's gonna present most of that information today and we can talk about it. So go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, sure thing. So the instructions came out, the instructions I would kind of have little fanfare compared to prior tips. Really for local sponsors, there's no restrictions or requirements of preservation like in tips of long ago. I guess the only slight tweak is that active transportation is certainly an encouragement in the instructions. And then for DOT, we still have a preservation floor that is required for the tip update. And that's to get after the pavement, bridges, and signals and TMC, all the preservation categories that need to hold the network together in some decent condition. So get right to the meat of it. This is the brass tacks of the instructions that comes with the money. And for the 8 counties of Region 1, our federal funds are going up to about 125 million in federal, but we're seeing a decrease of about 20 million in state funds. So we're netting a little more funds as a region, but we're losing. It's a lot more fed, but it's a significant cut in state allocations. So that's the whole region. We'll get to the next one. Here is the last slide where we're working in federal only dollars. We're recommending to bring an additional $16 million of federal aid to this MPO table. And the things to note here are that STBG Flex is basically, it's a little below flat. It's about $1 million less per year for the 4 out years. And large urban is about $300,000 lower. So not, the urban's a minor change. And then we also show our newest fund sources of medium urban and large urban. Those carry forward. And then a new fund source was introduced of Bridge Formula Program Maine, which means that's a fund source that's available to use for on-system bridges. So bridges on the federal aid system.
And just to be clear, when you say increase of 60 million, it's over the program.
Each year.
It's each year, is it?
I think it's each year, yeah. I'll have to fact check how I said that, but
All right, I'm just looking for the 16.
yeah.
It's largely in the bridge formula program funds
And NHP.
and the NHPP are where we saw the increases. The urban, the ones that are labeled urban are formula.
Yep.
Based on our population, so they're kind of hard numbers.
But the total federal says the difference is 8. Yeah, so
Well,
the other 8 is where?
well, that's where this is where it's a funny table. Federal 25 is halfway increased to the full increase from the last tip. Like, because we work in the state fiscal year, they increased the state fiscal year, but that's only half of a federal fiscal year. So that's why federal 25 is shown as,
So that's the other 8.
that's the other.
That's the
All
other.
right.
So if I had federal 25 here, it would show 62 is the, what it would be.
I need a footnote on that.
Or you could just include 24.
The different fiscal years really are fun in an accounting world.
When we get them here officially, it actually says for fiscal year 25, it represents half of a year.
Yeah.
So they actually assign, Greg kind of extrapolated that a little bit for us.
Whole year in there.
Yeah.
So then here we convert all those previous numbers to matched funds. Because this table likes to look at whole dollars instead of trying to figure out federal plus 20%, yada, yada. This just simplifies the process when we show matched funds. So here's the first slice of planning targets, for us to utilize, as we roll up existing projects and look for capacity for anything new. A couple things to note, of course, these things they're planning targets, which are always subject to change, the caveat that comes with every tip cycle. But this is the best information we have today. And like we were saying, the biggest increases are NHPP and the new bridge formula program, and a slight increase in the HSIP allocation. So other things to note, with the increase in HSIP, as a state, we understand that spending the HSIP is sometimes challenged. And because it's the most difficult fund source to spend because of all the rules associated with it. So here at this table, we've been pretty successful at programming and delivering projects in this category. So I'll get to this topic a little more later, but if we have projects that do qualify through either the benefit cost ratio or another pedestrian safety topic I'll hit on in a bit, we can load up the fifth year of the tip with excess capacity safety projects. And if we get the annual call, do you have anything to accelerate? If we have something designed and ready, we can pull it in. Makes for interesting conversation, but it's something that we want to strategically be ready to do for when that call comes of, can you spend more safety? We like to say yes.
You have a percentage cap in vision though, so as to not take away everything from the future.
No, it's the safety is a funny one when you accelerate it. In a following tip update, you're kind of held harmless on that particular fund because of the potential to spend it. We're in all states. I think I cover this later too. Is all states are in what's called the penalty zone of safety because we're not meeting our safety goals. But that's all 50 states. We're not unique. And usually, when you think of a penalty, you think they take something away. We all get fined, whatever. The federal version of a penalty is you must spend it. You have to spend it every year. So it adds pressure to spend it faster, not slower. Bridge formula funds. This is a new fund source out of the IIJA. Like I said, it's on federal aid system bridges only. And in this round, they're handing out this fund source to the regions, which helps. Off-system bridges. Region 1 only gets about 2 million per year. And if we divvy that up, it doesn't make for funding a project. So we put the off-system bridges outside of this area. And if we have off-system bridges come to the table, they could use the Flex or Urban fund sources. And then, of course, Bridge New York has a lot of work out there that needs to get done. So bridges are getting addressed, which fortunately now Bridge New York is also programmed at this table, which I think is a big win. Just not programmed in the same cycle. Moving on, this table represents an early illustration of the roll-up of all the set-asides that DOT requests in a normal tip cycle. This is the pavement set-aside, the guide rail set-aside, the TNC, things of that nature. And we're trying to really heavily subscribe to a little bit of safety, really heavy on NHPP, and a little bit of flex, more in the out years, to fund those 8 county set-asides. And this is the portion that we're proposing here. And as much as we've seen a significant decrease in state funds, we're still trying to hold this to a lower number than last tip update. So in the 5 years, we're asking for 4 million less in preservation work than we did 3 years ago. So we'll roll up exactly where this is all going. For January. But just a preview of the magnitude that we.
I know the state preservation targets don't apply to the locals, but just as a question, does this largely cover your target? Preservation work?
This is only a piece of the target.
Okay.
The remaining target will be site specific.
It will be six, okay.
You know, the themes, the color of money is sort of painting a different picture than it has in the past. We usually are able to do a tip update and select projects, I'll say blind to the fund source and then sort it out later. With the big increases in NHS and bridge specific money, that's gonna change the tune a little bit and basically focus on bridges. Region 1 is strategically reducing our bridge preservation funding, but trying to pivot to more bridge replacements. In prior tip updates, we were averaging as of 8 counties replacing like 3 bridges per year. With 840 bridges, that's and 200 and it's a 280-year bridge replacement cycle. So we're trying to get to 5 bridges per year, which gets us to a paltry 170-year bridge cycle. If we get to a 100-year cycle, we feel much more comfortable on that funding level. But we're trying to move the needle. Our goal is to move the needle towards some more bridge replacements. So then the next theme is the safety, like I was talking about earlier. They're one piece of the highway safety program. There's a subset of the fund called vulnerable road user, which is essentially anyone not in a vehicle, in a motor vehicle. And states are required to spend 15% of their overall safety funds on this category. And this gets after the systemic pedestrian safety treatments that were all identified in the pedestrian safety action plan. And so anything listed in the PED safety action plan can use this category and get after that 15% target of safety money to spend. And that'll lead to another proposal to talk about later, but I wanted to put it in front of the committee in a moment. And then flex funds, SDVG flex, as much as we show it as one line for the region, it's actually a roll-up of money that must go to rural areas, must go to small urban areas, some must go to medium urban areas, and some is actually truly flex or anywhere money. We just roll it up as anywhere money. And when projects come in, we identify where they are and assign which bucket it can charge. And it usually works itself out. There is some mention in the instructions that flex should be targeted beyond the large urban area. But here, I'm not sure that is it's a suggestion, not a requirement. So, you know, it generally shakes out just fine using flex and large urban. It all works itself out in the end. So, like I was mentioning, the pedestrian safety action plan, we'd like to suggest some set-asides or funding categories for the committee's consideration come January. And the pedestrian safety action plan treatments is one that, you know, again, a focus area. These treatments are all systemic, so you don't need to do the benefit cost analysis. You don't need to do that deep dive to justify spending it. If it's on the list of treatments, you can use it. Use the safety. And then this other bullet of, do we add another fund to cover ineligible work? Because I know the cities that received pedestrian safety money were highly challenged to find locations that would work because it needed a whole signal replacement. Because everything is too old to retrofit all the pedestrian safety features. So it made that work challenging. So this leads to the question, do we want a federally signal set aside or a family of projects where sponsors bring in a signal replacement tip project? And it's the fund source that the routes would qualify for with a subset of that funds as the head safety features. That way, we're maximizing the use of all the funds together.
Again, any thought as to what percentage that could be of the total though? I mean, I know for us, we could benefit from, ineligible work being made eligible because we've got so many signals that are so old.
Yeah. The,
Um,
the key is they have to be on the federal aid system for the non-HSIP. You know, we deliver, in the 8 counties, we deliver $1 million to $1.5 million a year, or every 2 years in traffic signal replacements. It's not enough to keep pace in an ideal world, but it gets after 5 to 6 signals a year per project every 2 years. So we're not looking to be a major magnitude of the tip percentage. But do sponsors want to come forward with signal projects is question for the group. But then it could be a portion of safety money, which would help reduce how much of flex or urban you're likely subscribing to.
Yeah, I'm just wondering the percentages of the safety action plan that it would be, if you could set aside what do you think your cap would be?
It would have a cap, it would be what's eligible, but if you replace a full signal, but then put in all the new PEG features, you're probably, 150,000 per signal, you're probably 30,000 plus or minus for the HSIP portion, 20% maybe. Would be safety. And then the next one is to build upon the signal timing discussion at the beginning. We would like to propose a tip category, not a huge amount, but more than $100,000. Less than $1 million. We're not sure where we're gonna land, but a tip project to hire a consultant that is not cross municipality boundaries, I'd say. So if we're doing a corridor and we want to put in the best available technology in the corridor to get after adaptive signals, whatever technology we can find that helps mobility, then we can cross the boundary. So like Central Avenue goes Schenectady through water jurisdiction to Albany. We'd have possible mechanism to make a whole corridor work and not just stop at a municipal line. That's one potential tip category we'd like folks to consider.
With just on that, I've made a contention a couple of times with CDTA that those corridors, because that's what we're doing, is that if it's on one of these BRT routes or one of those, because they have a pot of money that we don't even have, right? That pot of money steps up and goes across municipal lines to make sure that all those signals are up to snuff. And that's what we're doing with the red line essentially. Because it's all trying to squeeze out whatever money we can to get the improvements. So, the city's getting some benefits out of that red line project. And I don't know, it stops right now in the city, but there, as the bus lines are growing and things like that, and are using them, and they're essentially, light rail, put in your head, they're buses, you gotta. That's what I always think is that we gotta all kind of find our little ways to help each other out when we're trying to make these improvements.
So
Well-
the intermunicipal would require working together.
Yeah.
Under an agreement.
We have to figure out the agreements and of course the future maintenance of,
Yeah.
okay, it's yours, so you have to maintain this hardware if we put additional hardware in to make the technology work, but since these corridors are generally getting upgraded for things like BRT and other reasons, because they're high volume corridors, the anticipation is that signals don't need to be replaced to make it work. They have a high enough level of technology that you can just add a little bit of hardware to add all these new features, whatever we figure out works. There's DOT has the TISMO, Transportation System and forget the whole operations,
Management operations.
yeah, management operations, that program is meant to get after the best available technology, but we don't want to stop at our boundary. We want to, you know, get to an invisible line to the driver and go, oh, it's congested now, sorry. We want to be cohesive. The idea. So, for consideration. And then the other one, in the last tip update, we made an offer for ADA compliance projects to, you know, upgrade sidewalks that are deficient. And I would dare say even some connections where there's clear, if there's a gap in the sidewalk, but it's a clear use, you know, the walking paths that are being used, that's still considered deficient. So we could see this as being some connections in a corridor to bring a corridor up to ADA compliance. Last tip update, we offered to provide 15% of the match, so it walked and talked like a Marchicelli project. On state highways, we would cover the entire match since you're helping our ADA transition plan as well. But the idea is that locals know where your priorities are, where your PEDs are, or where you want PEDs to go in future development plans. So this is an outstanding offer. We'll offer the entire match for sidewalk projects on the state highway. And then local highways, it would revert back to Marchicelli and remain 95.5. So this is another project family. I don't know if folks are interested in addressing or pursuing. Just apply for projects in this category and they compete on a head category or the appropriate tip bucket that's already there. And then another one, just for awareness, this is more of a state funds use, but other projects that do major work to roads within your villages and hamlets that happen to be state highways, a lot of times the infrastructure grants don't come with enough money to do the surface. So we'll generally bring to the table a equivalent preservation amount of money to help round out a project and get the surface paved as part of a bigger infrastructure project. Like I said, this is kind of unrelated to the TIP process because the federal aid projects aren't digging up infrastructure, you know, water and sewer infrastructure there. But this is a different offer to help get after the surface of a street when all the other grants in the world come your way. This is more of an awareness for everybody. And that's all I have. Are there any questions on all this? I know I threw a lot out there, but really that's the amount of money available, and I hope you're all thinking about the projects to put in with the solicitation out there.
Have this signed it, I mean, something without a magnitude of what
So,
money you're talking about.
right,
Like signal
so,
projects, who owns signals? It's probably the cities and the state.
Yeah.
None of the towns or counties really own signals, right?
Counties, some, a few towns. have-
Maybe one or two signals or something, maybe, I mean.
the likely largest beneficiaries will be the cities, because they probably have the most signals on federally roadways.
And oldest.
And probably the older
You know,
ones.
out of date.
And then the state could use the funds for state highways through towns, is that, or no? You're not-
So for traffic signals alone, part of that set aside discussion is we have the 8-county traffic signal set aside. So we're getting after our own signals with that set aside. So the question is, are locals interested in bringing forward signal replacement projects to get after your own replacements? And then as part of that, collectively, you can all use the safety fund for the pedestrian components of the new signal. But because we ran into all the problems of safety money only, we knew to get after anything else, a different pot of money is needed.
What would that pot be?
Yeah, I guess.
Most likely flex or urban. Probably large urban for the city because it's the city.
So the the puzzle that we're starting to assemble will actually tie into the next topic, which is the status of these existing projects. Because everything that is being proposed as a new idea hinges on how many of those existing projects have either obligated their phases, haven't even completed construction in some cases. And for a number of reasons, staffing changes on our side as well as at Region 1, we don't have a good handle on that right now. And so one of the things that we're gonna do is large. So following today's meeting sometime this week, you'll be getting an email from me if you're a project sponsor. And those listening in remotely, if you're representing a project sponsor, to expect the sponsor to receive this email where we're gonna be requesting updated cost schedules and scope, any scope changes. If there's an issue with right of way or something that's, changing the nature of the project for whatever reason, we need to have you submit all of that information to us by December 13th. That is a pretty hard deadline because we need to know because of the scale we're talking about. You may remember at our prior meeting, I mentioned a preliminary look. It could be, the roll-in of existing project could be as large as $200 million. That eats up, if you go back to the chart, Greg showed, that eats up basically the first 2 to 3 years of funding. So we really want to make sure we are pretty solid on what the status of those existing projects are. As part of that, we're hosting a sponsor meeting here on November 20th at 2:30 p.m. Sponsor staff and or your consultants are welcome to attend. We're going to use this as an opportunity to talk about a lot of things related to the local program. Our project delivery challenges as a region, as well as being available to answer any questions you might have about costs and schedules. Our biggest fear is the inflation is not reflected in a lot of these numbers. And if every one of these projects needs to add another $1 million to it, it's really going to eat into what we can do with new things. So that's one of the pieces of this puzzle that we're trying to get a handle on, is what is the status of those existing projects. So
The tip is due the 6th though.
the
the
tip
tip submissions are the week
solicitation is
before.
due the week before,
Okay.
correct? And I apologize for the timing. Part of that is we have to process information and we have these 2 magical holidays that happen at the end of December that make staff time tricky. So I do apologize for that. We are fortunate we were able to, that's partially why we moved the planning committee meeting to January 1st happens to be a Wednesday, so. So for the local government sponsors, expect that email sometime, either if not today, but later this week. CDTA, I've already reached out to you folks. Similarly, we're gonna need any project that's using the federal highway funds by the 13th. If we know you have FTA funded projects as well. I'm saying by January 8th, a lot of those funds are really yours, so, let us know. We can work with you guys on that. And similarly, I think Greg, you had already sent me your assumptions on the existing projects for the DOT. So I think we'll just see if anything has changed since you last sent us that list. We'll have that to share with you at the January 8th meeting, and that will be one of our first steps. Comparing the allocation to that roll-in. And then we can start talking about other things. But once we have a handle on that roll-in, the picture will become very clear of what's available for new things. Based on what we know, sitting here right now at 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning. Because as Greg noted, things are subject to change. Any questions about that? Okay, and then just reminders again, as Chris noted, the application deadline is December 6th. Just a few reminders. Existing design only projects seeking construction funds must submit a proposal. You're not amending the tip to add construction funds to those. Proposed costs, you should think about, we know that there's a challenge with administering federal aid projects. Think about building into your cost estimate some project administration funds. You can build that in there, so you can include that in your RFP when you're actually going out to bid. So just consider that, as you're building your cost estimate. A lot of folks probably could use some help with the administration side of things. All applications must be provided in jot form. However, we've made a document available upon request containing the questions. So if you want to work offline, to prepare your answers, or you have multiple applications you're considering, we can certainly provide that to you. As Greg already, reviewed, the HSIP projects are encouraged.
So you have
And
to request the document containing the question, and that's not just available.
we can post it on the website if that's easier for folks. That's fine.
We didn't want anyone to use the fillable PDFs to fill them in and email them to us, because then we would have to type in all the information
Right.
again into
That's what we were trying
the
to work with.
system. So that's really just to see the questions in advance before you fill out the job form.
Yeah, my folks just ran through the job forms and dumped them into a file. We already did it.
Oh.
Kind of backwards.
Yeah, and we can take out the fillable form part and just make it, post the questions if that's.
I don't know, I just thought,
Do not send this PDF in. Here are the questions.
Exactly. And then again, you know, depending on the scale of the roll-in of existing projects and the number a given sponsor may have, if a given sponsor has 2 or 3 projects rolling in and are asking for something new, might not be getting it. And I'm just putting that out there, and that's because of the resources available. So, you know, we'll have to play all of those scenarios out when we see how things play out. But if you have questions about the tip update, email us at info@capitalmpo.org. And we're happy to take any additional questions about that.
It's still going to be separate solicitations. I mean, there's usually always some kind of, we have the CMAC HSIP, we have all, you know what I mean, there's usually. Or do we see those going away at some point too? Yeah.
History is every 2 years on each one. So TAP, CMAX, CRP was in 2023. So the cycle, assumingly continues, it'll be 2025 next year. Hopefully after this tip update's wrapped up. Then I can't imagine it wouldn't be. And then the popularity of Bridge New York, I can't imagine that's going away either, but again, stay tuned. So there'll be those two also coming, and, you know, some of these design onlys may be good for those solicitations if they don't fit here.
So that was gonna be my next question, is that like right now, right, and I've talked about this a couple of times, is that from the city of Schenectady perspective, I'm gonna make sure that the current projects that I have are funded and constructible, because we have 4. They're good projects that went through the process, and we're gonna make sure those are constructible. However, we also have linkage studies and plans that have been approved that we're not gonna put in for this solicitation because of all the things we just talked about. However, I would possibly put them in for a separate solicitation in the future. I just want to make sure that nothing that we do at this table to try to save money somehow precludes me from that submission because of design only or things like that. That's all. I'm just trying to get my game plan and together.
Any and all homework done via linkage or design only makes you more competitive in those solicitations.
But if we do something, that's what I'm getting at, but if we do something here and say, you know what, these 3 projects will be design only. If it's gonna have any more of a seat at the table with anybody, and that's all, I'm just trying to see if this.
Design only is still being contemplated as being used in the upcoming tip.
I think we're talking about the existing design onlys and see how these play out. If we had a Google's more capacity anticipated, maybe we could talk about more.
What was that word?
Google's lots of more money.
Where did the days?
Yeah. We're anticipating a
I
win.
thought it was an abbreviation.
No.
Another acronym.
I'm trying to get away from
Right.
that. I'm trying to get away from acronyms. Tons more money.
Tons more. Okay,
We'd have a different conversation. I'm not sure.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do believe, again, sitting here today at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, TAP CMAC should be next fall 2025.
Sandy, where are we?
So we are now at letter B,
Yeah.
second page, the admin modification.
Modifications available at meeting.
Yes, so here is the document that's available at meeting. I'll allow Greg to talk about the DOT admin mod because it's a rather large one and
So,
go ahead.
Federal Rail Administration funds are not a fund source that's designated to come through an MPO process. With that said, we have this little project of regional significance known as the Livingston Avenue Bridge, and we awarded it with $3 million of federal and $630 million of state. So we've since, a couple meetings ago, we were able to get some federal highway funds, which went through both planning and policy to put 90 million of off-system bridge on for the path portion of the bridge. And recently, the state was able to secure 215 million of FRA money. Now, given the magnitude of this, I wanted to discuss it at this table for information as part, even though it's technically an admin mod, that Andrew would just go and go, here's $215 million. But given the magnitude, I wanted to be above board and tell the committee about the swap out of 200+ million of state for federal rail, which we appreciate this grant arriving to help cover this bridge. And this was talked about on Friday by Mr. Tonko with some fanfare around all other things, so. All good things.
That STBG off bridge, that's a state set aside, that came from the state passes.
That came from what accounting calls August redistribution, which is if states aren't spending their money around August, they tell all the other states that are spending all their money and then some, hey, can you spend this? And we were, there's 90 million of off system. We got a spot for that. So
But didn't come from this table though.
it didn't come from this table and it hoovered up available money across the country. Is always.
That's another one.
You're fine today, Greg.
Doing it. All right, I just, yeah, it's fine.
I think that's still back.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, nobody's saying Dyson it up yet, right?
No.
No, hasn't caught on yet.
Very.
Yeah, so this is a good news story. It just helps free up state resources for other things, which was a challenge for New York State as a whole. And actually did kind of hurt Region 1 by tying up state money into this one project. So this is definitely a good news story.
It is.
So just the FYI.
That's just an admin mod, and then these are the remaining admin mods that we always show for transparency, these little tweaks that happen behind the scenes. I don't know, Andrew, if there's any of these that are significant that you wanted to mention, but most of them were schedule changes, phase changes.
Yeah, a couple of description changes in there, and then a small amount of the use of the carbon reduction program funding for Cherry Avenue down in Bethlehem. But I think most of the others didn't involve any new funding, just description changes and schedule changes.
So that is just for your information.
Thank you, Sandy. So we're on to local project delivery things.
Yeah, so as you all know, we have been dutifully sharing this table with you for months, couple years now, not sure how long we've been doing it. As I kind of alluded to earlier, we're questioning the content. And we're probably gonna be revamping this whole table. And trying to coordinate now with the new staff at Region 1 in Local Programs Bureau to kind of develop a new way of tracking these federal aid projects that will be mutually beneficial to both organizations. As you can imagine, DOT has a lot more information to trace, and they care about some items specific to running a federal aid project that maybe the MPO here, we don't necessarily care about. The phases that we tend to care about are the ones highlighted here. Did we obligate your preliminary design? Did we get a detailed design report approved? Are you dealing with a right of way and did that get worked out? And then obviously your construction. And I think from the MPO's perspective, those are the ones that generally speaking, we care about. Obviously, we do care about the cost and we do care about the schedule and the timing of these things. But a lot of these other columns that we've been showing you probably aren't terribly relevant to you folks. And might be better tracked by Region 1 internally. So we're gonna revamp this thing. And try to utilize a new tool for the new tip that we're gonna be adopting. We're probably not gonna show this anymore like this under the current tip. Until we feel confident we have a good handle on the status of these existing projects, which hopefully we will by the end of December. That can lead us to a new style report here. But that's just an FYI for what's going on with this tracking sheet. We're gonna revamp it. And keep it maintained in a different way moving forward. And a lot of. We've talked about project delivery at other meetings here, you know, our region as a whole. We're ranked pretty low statewide in our project delivery. We are going to need to do more to work with the sponsors on communicating steps, issues before they become tip amendments. You know, they still may need a tip amendment, but we just need to have better communication and coordination with everybody on these. So that's also part of our November 20th meeting. And it could lead to some additional policies here for the new tip to be determined. You know, maybe there's some stronger language about moving things along, and if you can't, you gotta come here and explain why, you know, whatever these things are, we'll have to figure out as a group, but I think the days of just letting things roll and roll and roll without communicating what's going on is kind of behind us now. So that's just sort of a heads up, but if you have any questions about that, let me know.
Thank you, Sandy. NISDOT project delivery?
Yeah, for NISDOT project deliveries, the one of note that's letting in December is Route 146 over Normanskill Bridge replacement, which includes the multi-use path between Winter Park and Talacinta Park. Is that right?
Mhm.
And the other thing, speaking of project delivery, if I'm getting, speaking of end of state fiscal year questions of can we do more? If any local sponsor has a project that is close to PSNE and can get let before the end of March. If you're currently sort of out there in April or May, if you can let it before the end of March, please bring it in and get it in the queue and advertised, and we will let everything that can be accelerated into March or sooner, but it's November now, so any sooner than March would be a challenge, but any accelerations are welcome. Yeah, just let Alex and Lorenzo know that you're accelerating, and Greg said to do it.
And I don't know, does everybody know how you've broken up Alex versus Lorenzo in terms of the county responsibilities?
We've changed course. We used to have Lorenzo handle all of design, Lorenzo Cuneo, and Alex Poland handle all of construction. And the idea of cross-training and sort of redundancy, now Lorenzo Cuneo handles 4 counties and Alex Poland handles 4 counties. Pretty sure Alex is Albany, Schenectady, and Green. I forget what other county. And then Lorenzo Cuneo is like Rensselaer, Saratoga, and a couple others.
Yeah, I just mentioned that because they each took on 2 of our counties that we pay attention to, so just if you didn't know that, just keep that in mind. We'll talk about that too at the November 20th meeting.
And then they're now cradle to grave. It's the whole project, all the construction is handled by the respective person. And they work so well together. It's almost really, I think it's working well overall. There's hiccups everywhere, but you know, of course, Guy is now basically replaced Lorenzo. Guy Tedesco. And
That's it. Great. Status of regional transportation kinetic initiatives.
Yeah, so just a couple of, oops, nothing, the table that we have on our website with all the linkage studies, the statewide sort of regional studies, and our technical assistance projects are all available on the website. We do have a number of them, like I said, at various states of development. I won't go into them in detail today, but you know, the nice part about that table is links to all the websites. So if you're not certain about a project or you want more information, you can go to the project websites off of that table. Stop with that. Okay.
Regional and local planning updates. Back to you
Yes.
guys.
So this one, again, as a reminder about the planning study solicitation, as you know, we're also seeking proposals for our linkage program and for ADA transition plans because of our funding situation. As I mentioned earlier, we have 9 active linkage studies right now, so there's a little bit of a backlog. We're about to project delivery. We anticipate being able to fund maybe one of each type of these in this solicitation at minimum. If some of those linkage studies get finished up in this fiscal year, the federal fiscal year, well, actually the state fiscal year. We may have more to assign to new things, but we are anticipating being able to fund at least one of each type of effort. So keep that in mind, December 6th. As I mentioned earlier, the Emotion Regional Transportation Plan, we're almost done with a draft needs assessment for the region. Thank you to all the asset owners that contributed information to that. It was a really big help. They were really pleased with what they received, so that was great. We're doing a planning scenario workshop for our task force next week on November 13th, and following all of that, we'll have another public survey. So we're really starting to get into the meat of the development of the plan, which unfortunately coincides directly with the direct development of our TIP and the completion of the SS4A Vision Zero Safety Action Plan in these next 6 months. So that's all to say that our planning committee meetings are going to be a lot heavier than they were today. So plan your time accordingly. We're going to be pretty busy here. And finally, a staffing update here. Chaim Simon is leaving us to go to the New York City Planning Department. So we have officially lost 7 staff members since January. But the good news is we've got some great staff that have recently joined us. Adam McCarville. Who we got? Oh, there you are. Ethan Townsend and then Parker Morris have all joined us from various places. So please welcome them. We're probably going to be seeking some more staff here in the coming months. Hard to balance that when we're doing all these major things, but we're going to do the best we can. We do have to put some work on hold though for a while. So some of that technical assistance program work, you know, some of the extra things that we do, we're just going to have to put aside for a little while while we're working through these big initiatives. So, and that's all I have to share.
Thanks, Cindy. CDRPC.
We held a successful workshop at the end of October, mid-October, and 180 people came, which was great. Sandy presented on micro mobility, much to, I guess, good fanfare. Data updates on our website. We updated capitalregionindicators.org with new census data, new ACS data. We have released the age cohort projections for the region, in addition to population projections for all municipalities. We released a housing affordability study, which I've talked about previously, a land cover change analysis from 2011 to 2021. We took a look at housing sales in the capital region. We took a look at migration patterns, foreign-born population, and migration to and from our 4 counties in the region. So all that stuff's on our website.
Thank you. Oh, CDTA.
Yeah, thank you. So some highlights for this month. We just completed construction and opened up our mobility hub in just south of downtown Troy at Liberty Square, and very shortly we'll be doing the same at our mobility hub on South Main Boulevard near St. Peter's Hospital, which is approaching completion of construction. So that's more the culmination of the planning process, but nonetheless something we're very proud about. And currently, the planning department at CDTA is starting a won't say a study, but a process of looking at our stops and infrastructure around the region to identify potential new mobility hub sites in the future. Some projects that we're focused on right now are obviously the Red Line upgrade in Schenectady, as well as the new 80 Broadway station on the Blue Line, both to start next year. The other big thing to update on is our transit development plan update. We currently, as of last week, have a draft TDP in hand that we are reviewing and will be shortly circulating internally and externally, and we're figuring out the best way to gather feedback on that. So over the next couple of months, you'll be planners around the region, including I'm sure quite a few in this room, will be hearing from us for feedback on that. And we're currently on track for completion and adoption of the TDP by early 2025, probably around February.
And by mobility hub, is that, what's that?
Oh, I can,
Description of.
it's basically a, somewhere between a large bus stop and a true transit center. It's a place where, usually several routes come together and there's lots of transfer activity between different bus routes. So in addition to upgrading the waiting areas, outdoor waiting areas, but nonetheless, upgrading the shelter and seating and landscaping around that location, we also tie in our other mobility products, such as our CDPHP cycle bike share stations and drive car share locations to create basically a single consolidated locations where people can access multiple aspects of our service in one place. And then Sandy is sharing
It's this
a
from
picture
the
of our
Gateway Plaza in Schenectady.
Which that's considered a mobility hub.
Yeah, that was our first one, which was almost exactly a year ago.
Thank you. Nice, Doc. Back to Greg. Have we?
Yeah, the Reimagine I-787 study is the draft reports on the street, in case anyone missed that memo.
Hard to.
Tried to make sure no one missed that memo. We've extended public comment to December 1st. It was originally November 17th, but we decided to go to 45 days, given the interest. We're still meeting with agency partners to go over hopeful feedback from them. And the last DOT sponsored event is tonight at the Howe Library from 5 to 7. So tell anyone interested to come and talk to us. And then after that, with the fall and winter coming, we're probably not going to be as visible at farmers markets and such. And after the comment period closes, we're going to hopefully wrap up a final report for, let's say, early next year. So stay tuned for the final report. Yeah, that's the Reimagine.
You're anticipating this is what we.
Usually
The final report would be like.
there's gonna be, the draft report shows a handful of major highway concepts moving forward. Along with some, we'll call it add-ons or options that could go with each one. Or a few that could go on their own utility completely outside the process. There's a couple locations that have no impact on any of the other.
Of an incremental approach potentially to getting to a final goal or something.
The
near a
Pell-
Final goal.
Yeah, the Pell process doesn't let us get into enough detail to narrow to a single conclusion. So we've narrowed from several highway concepts down to 5. 3 boulevards and 2 interstates. And then the options that are moving forward include land bridges as the pretty much only way to increase pedestrian access points since the railroads pretty much got to stay. And then there's other amenities beyond that of various bike and ped network enhancements that could marry with any of the concepts. And then the standalone ones include enhancements around the historical Lock 1 area, which is in the shadow of the central warehouse, which hopefully won't cast a shadow someday. And then the Little River of Bonanza and a water fleet connection to the south end of Hudson Shores Park. Those last 3 can go on their own
Yeah.
timeline anytime outside of an EIS. For us to arrive at any of the major highway configurations as a preferred alternative, we have to go through an EIS process.
Mhm.
Stay tuned on whether we're gonna transition to that or not. I do not know.
All of the concepts, draft reports available on the website. If you were unable to attend some of the meetings, and we'll talk later about presentation to the policy board at some point.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Greg. Thruway Authority, do we have anybody? I mean,
I don't believe we have a rep from the Thruway Authority today.
okay, airport. Airport, right?
Nope. Not today.
Report.
Good morning, everyone. Give you a brief update on the expansion project, which is town of Bethlehem. The Corning Hill River Road signalization and road work is underway for that project. We completed the construction of the bridge over the Norman Skill, which connects the Albany Port District to the Bethlehem development site. So therefore, a lot of the thorough traffic can remain within the port's footprint. I think they're starting the bridge curbing installation at this time as well. We are anticipating, we received a grant from New York State DOT for about 10 million to help kind of finalize the upgrading of the high capacity rail and wharf decking at the Albany Maritime Terminal. Hopefully that'll start to get underway, first probably Q1 of 2025. And unfortunately, we didn't get some successful news from the federal grants that we applied for, the EPA Clean Port Initiative and the Mega Infra grants that we put in. We were unsuccessful, but we are holding out hope from NYSERDA to put in for about $100 million grant request to at least get the wharf built on the Beacon Island site. So that's the updates here.
Thank you. Local government, anybody, right? Anybody want to chime in?
I just, Sandy, we may have to exit the back of the building, there's construction out here. I just wanted everybody to know it's a big mess out front.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of work going on with the building right now. Thank
Couldn't
you.
get in. No, I didn't get in.
Yeah, if you couldn't get in the front door, you will need to go through the back.
Yeah.
They promised us that would be done before this meeting, so you know how that goes with contractors. Project deliveries,
That's not too bad.
it happens everywhere.
Okay, please note upcoming meetings, events, deadlines, in motion task force, anything here you want to talk about, Sandy? or-
Yeah, we are gonna have to cancel our community planner forum for December 19th, just for staff resources reasons right now, but we'll try to restart that in the new year or go with a new way of doing some things. We are gonna hold that equity advisory committee though.
All right. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Motion, do I have a second? I'll second. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Same, thank you.
Yeah.
You're in the portrait, you don't.
No,